Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss important issues appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 14th March 2018. Let's begin. On page number 1, the news reads Aadhaar link deadline extended indefinitely. Relief not applicable to benefits under Section 7 of the Act. This news also appears as a continuation on page number 10. Now, this news related to Aadhaar also forms part of your syllabus. Under the prelims examination, Aadhaar forms a part of governance issues as well as public policy and rights issue. In the mains examination, it can be covered under statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies as UIDAI has been constituted under the Adha Act, and also under government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of the design and implementation, and also under welfare schemes for vulnerable sections. So let's see this news on Aadhaar, what the Supreme Court has specifically said. In an ongoing case on Aadhaar, the Supreme Court has extended the deadline for linking of Aadhaar card to various services such as bank accounts, mobile phones and passport, and specifically for Tatkal passport scheme for which Aadhaar had been mandated. The Supreme Court has extended the deadline till the final hearing on the ongoing matter, where the constitutional validity of the Aadhaar Targeted Delivery of Financial and Other Subsidies, Benefits and Services Act 2016 has been challenged. Earlier, the Supreme Court in the same ongoing matter had extended the deadline of linking of Aadhaar till 31st March. But since the case has continued for long, hence the Supreme Court held that it wanted to end the confusion regarding final dates for linking of Aadhaar with PAN, SIM cards, etc. However, in this respect, it is important to note that March 31, 2018 continues to be the deadline for linking of Aadhaar for subsidies, benefits and services which comes within the purview of Section 7 of Aadhaar Act. So let us understand this Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act. As we see, Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act comes under the chapter of authentication. It reads, proof of Aadhaar number necessary for certain subsidies, benefits and services. Thus, effectively, Section 7 of Aadhaar Act makes providing Aadhaar compulsory for receiving subsidy, benefit or services for which the expenditure is incurred from the Consolidated Fund of India. Thus, if any resident in India is availing subsidy, benefit or services from the government of India or a government of a state, and this subsidy, benefit or services has been paid from the Consolidated Fund of India, then in such case providing Aadhaar becomes mandatory. This is what has been provided in Section 7 of the Act. It plainly reads, the central government, or as the case may be the state government, may, for the purpose of establishing identity, so this becomes important, for the purpose of establishing identity of an individual as a condition for receipt of a subsidy, benefit or service for which the expenditure is incurred from or the receipt therefrom forms part of Consolidated Fund of India, require that such individual undergo authentication or furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar. It means if the person does not have Aadhaar, they have to undergo the process of authentication to get an Aadhaar card. Thus, any subsidy, benefit or services availed by residents which comes within Section 7 of the Act for such services, deadline still remains at March 31, 2018. This is what has been exactly provided in the judgment. Since we have gone through Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act, let us also revise certain basic concepts related to Aadhaar, such as demographic information and biometric information. As you can see, biometric information means any photograph, fingerprint, iris scan or such other biological attributes of an individual as may be specified for regulations. Similarly, demographic information includes information relating to name, date of birth, address and other relevant information of an individual as may be specified by regulation for the purpose of issuing an Aadhaar number, but shall not include, this is very important, race, religion, caste, tribe, ethnicity, language, records of entitlement, income or medical history. A preliminary questions can be asked regarding biometric information and demographic information, and also with respect to such details which does not form part of demographic information. In the ongoing case, the Aadhaar Act has been challenged on various grounds, such as it being passed as a money bill, its constitutional validity with respect to right to privacy, issues related to data security, issues related to mandatory versus voluntary nature of Aadhaar. And there are other issues as well which the Supreme Court is hearing in the ongoing case of Aadhaar. So let's wait for the final judgment of Supreme Court in the Aadhaar issue. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 8. Here the news reads, an urgent prescription. India needs to shore up public sector capacity for making medicines. Now this article talks about capacity of public sector units to manufacture generic version of life-saving drugs through the route of compulsory licensing. Now India opted for a process patent regime in the year 1970 on the recommendations of Iyengar Commission report. And in the year 2005, in compliance with TRIPS agreement, India adopted for product patent regime. The author suggests that from the year 1970 to the year 2005 has seen decline and near disappearance of public sector capacity to manufacture life-saving drugs. So in this respect, let us understand about process patent regime, product patent regime, and the concept of compulsory licensing. Suppose this is a product X and there are 7 different processes to manufacture this product X. So in a process patent regime, the different processes used to get patent protection. Suppose if a process B is applied to manufacture the same product X, then this process of B will get patent protection, or some other person applied a different process, say for example D, then this D process will get a patent to manufacture the same product, that is product S. Hence this is what we generally understand as process patent regime. So India in the year 1970 through Iyengar Commission report adopted this process patent regime. Now product patent regime simply says that a product X, taking the same example, this product X, in whatever ways it is being manufactured, this effectively it's the product which gets the patent, and these different processes do not get patent protection. So here you can see this is a more liberal regime and this is a more stricter regime. So after complying the TRIPS agreement, India now has product patent. Now let us understand the concept of compulsory licensing. Compulsory licensing are basically sovereign state authorization where a particular country authorize the product of a particular drug, and this compulsory licensing enables a third party to make, use or sell the patented product without the consent of patent holder. Both Indian Patent Act 1970 as well as TRIPS agreement, TRIPS stand for Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights, provides for this concept of, that is both this Indian Patent Act 1970 as well as TRIPS agreement provides for this concept of compulsory licensing. As you can see, section 84 of the Indian Patent Act 1970 provides for compulsory licenses, and it says that at any time after the expiration of 3 years from the date of a grant of a patent, any person interested may make an application to the controller for grant of compulsory license on patent on any of the following grounds. The grounds may be that reasonable requirements of public with respect to patented invention have not been satisfied. Secondly, that the patented invention is not available to the public at a reasonable and affordable price. This becomes an important point. And then that the patented invention is not worked in the territory of India. And this controller shall grant compulsory licensing if a circumstance of national emergency exists, or a circumstance of extreme urgency exists, or in a case of public non-commercial use, which may arise or is required, including public health crises relating to acquired immune deficiency syndrome diseases, that is AIDS, human immunodeficiency virus, tuberculosis, malaria, or other epidemics. So these are the conditions under which compulsory licenses can be granted for the manufacture of any patented drug. So these are the various circumstances as well as diseases for which the government can grant compulsory licenses for the manufacture of such life-saving drugs. Thus, compulsory licensing allows country to manufacture patented drugs by overcoming the restriction imposed by patents. India earlier, through the process of compulsory licensing, had permitted two pharma companies to produce an anti-cancer drugs, namely Nexavar. So this compulsory licensing effectively reduces cost and makes the drug available to the public at large. However, taking the route of compulsory licenses can be expensive and involves various litigation process, including court expenses. Thus, all these expenses and litigation makes the process of compulsory licensing cumbersome for those private players. It is in this respect that the author in this article has suggested that the public sector capacity shall take the lead to manufacture life-saving drugs through the process of compulsory licensing, as drugs manufactured by this public sector capacity can be utilized in primary and secondary healthcare facilities. Even the 2016 report of UN High-Level Panel Access to Medicines has called upon countries to export pharma products produced through compulsory licensing. And it is here where India, through its public sector units manufacturing life-saving drugs through compulsory licensing, can take the lead to manufacture as well as export important life-saving drugs at a lower cost. Thus, this topic becomes very important with respect to your UPSC examination, and it is covered under GS paper 3 under issues relating to intellectual property rights. Hence, this becomes a very important topic. I hope with this analysis you would have understood the concept of process patent, product patent, and as well as the issue pertaining to compulsory licensing, and how in this article the author has suggested India to take a lead with respect to public sector capacity to manufacture as well as export drugs through the process of compulsory licensing at a lower cost. Hence, this topic becomes very important. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 8. Here the news reads, a model protest. Maharashtra's farmers win hearts and minds. Their issues must be addressed everywhere. Now this news is about the gathering of farmers in Mumbai to address their concerns and grievances which they have been facing due to acute agrarian crisis. These farmers wanted to sensitize the government and make them aware of their certain demands, namely complete waiver of farm loan, better prices for crops, pension scheme for farmers, implementation of Swaminathan Commission report on minimum support price. Now this minimum support price or MSP is a price fixed by the government of India to protect the farmers against excessive fall in prices due to market distortions, and proper implementation of laws governing forest produce under the Forest Rights Act 2006. Now in this respect, let us also understand that why the farmers of Maharashtra has put such a demand to their state government. Last year, the government of Maharashtra had provided loan waiver scheme worth rupees 34,022 crore to 89 lakh farmers. However, as per the government loan waiver scheme, all the farmers were not eligible, and also the implementation was a bit patchy. Now since the government of Maharashtra had already provided a loan waiver scheme last year, hence in this year credit availability for agriculture sector was decreased. Another reason why the farmers were agitating was also because crops were destroyed on large scale due to unpredictable weather and poor rainfall. In this regard, even the Economic Survey of Maharashtra had projected a negative agricultural growth of 8.3% for the financial year 2017-18, and also due to decreased production of food grains, pulses and cotton. Thus we see the reasons why the farmers have been protesting on a large scale in Mumbai. Now under the proper implementation of laws governing forest produce, the farmers are demanding to implement the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006. Now this topic was covered by Maharshi ma'am on 12th March 2018. So to refer to this particular topic, you can go back to her video dated 12th March 2018. Let us quickly understand what is the main aim of this particular act. It says an act to recognize and vest the forest rights and occupation in forest land in forest dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers who have been residing in such forest for generations but whose rights could not be recorded. So this is an important part. So most of the farmers who are agitating are also those tribal farmers who do not have land records. Hence they want a complete and a proper implementation of this act so that they can get certain land records on the basis of which they can apply for institutional credit or formal credit. And another important demand for farmers are implementation of Swaminathan Commission report or recommendation on minimum support price. Let us understand what the Swaminathan Commission report had to say on this. As you can see, the National Commission on Farmers was constituted in November 2004 under the chairmanship of Professor M.S. Swaminathan. The terms of reference was mandated to make suggestions on issues such as medium-term strategy for food and nutrition security in the country, enhancing productivity, profitability and sustainability of major farming systems of the country, policy reforms to substantially increase flow of rural credit to all farmers. Hence, this was also one of the terms of reference for this Swaminathan Commission. Special programs for dryland farming for farmers in the arid and semi-arid regions as well as for farmers in hilly and coastal areas, enhancing the quality and cost competitiveness of farm commodities so as to make them globally competitive, protecting farmers from imports when international prices fall sharply, and empowering elected local bodies to effectively conserve and improve the ecological foundations for sustainable agriculture. As we have seen in the previous act, that is Right to Forest Act 2006, the Gram Sabha has been empowered as an authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual or community forest rights. Thus, these were the terms of reference for this Swaminathan Commission. The Swaminathan Commission gave certain specific recommendations with respect to credit and insurance availability. It said that timely and adequate supply of credit is basic requirement of small farm families, and it suggested to expand the outreach of formal credit system to reach really poor and needy. And this is what has been demanded by the farmers in Maharashtra. Reduce rate of interest for crop loans to 4% simple interest government support. Moratorium on debt recovery, including loans from non-institutional sources, and waiver of interest loans in distress, hotspots, and during calamities till capability is restored. Hence, this is also one of the recommendations of Swaminathan Commission. Establish an agriculture risk fund to provide relief to farmers in the aftermath of successive natural calamities. Issue Kisan credit cards to women farmers with joint pattas as collateral. Develop an integrated credit cum crop livestock human health insurance package. Expand crop insurance. And lastly, promote sustainable livelihood for poor by improving financial services, infrastructure, investments in human development, agriculture and business development services, institutional development services such as forming and strengthening producers organizations such as self-help groups and water user associations. Thus, these are some of the important recommendations of Swaminathan Commission on Credit and Insurance. And this is what the agitating farmers have been demanding for the implementation of these recommendations. In the UPSC syllabus, it gets covered under GS Paper 3 under issues related to direct and indirect farm subsidies and minimum support price. A question in mains was also asked in the year 2013. The question read, what are the different types of agricultural subsidies given to farmers at the national and state levels? Critically analyze the agricultural subsidy regime with reference to the distortions created by it. I hope after going through this video, you will be able to answer such type of questions if asked in your mains examination. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 1. It also appears as a continuation on page number 10. It reads, post-scam, RBI stops issue of LOUs, that is, letter of undertaking. In the light of the bank frauds that have recently emerged, Reserve Bank of India has decided to discontinue the practice of providing guarantees by issuing letters of credit and letters of comfort for taking credits. These LOUs that is letter of undertakings and letter of comfort, acts as an assurance for payment extended by a third party. Now, this decision to discontinue LOU as well as letter of comfort shall be applicable to authorized dealer category 1 banks. Now, these authorized dealers are such financial institutions who are authorized to deal in foreign exchange, or such financial institutions who have received authorization from RBI as a dealer to involve in trading of foreign currency. So in India, it's the Reserve Bank of India which regulates this dealing in foreign currencies through the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. It is important to note that LOUs or letter of undertaking for trade credit to importers can still be issued, but only subject to compliance to certain provisions. With regard to discontinuance of LOUs, it is expected to have a negative impact on trade financing activities, as importers rely heavily on these LOUs as it is a chief source of credit. In light of the recent bank frauds, RBI has also warned the banks of the potential malicious use of SWIFT infrastructure, where SWIFT stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Transactions. This SWIFT infrastructure enables financial institutions and banks to send and receive information regarding financial transactions in a secure, standardized, and reliable environment. However, recently, it was this SWIFT infrastructure which has been misused for unethical transactions. And recently, to deal with the issue relating to classification of bad loans, rising incidents of frauds in financial transactions, and effectiveness of financial audits, RBI has formulated a committee under the chairmanship of Y.H. Maligam. Thus, this news with respect to discontinuation of letter of undertaking becomes important from your prelims point of view, as questions relating to SWIFT as well as role of RBI to regulate authorized dealers can be asked in your prelims exam. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 13. Here the news reads, CAG flags railways Parlous finances. Operating ratio has weakened to 16-year low. Passenger fares, freight charges must aim to cover cost. In this news, the CAG, that is Comptroller and Auditor General of India, has recently said that the operating ratio of railways has been deteriorating continuously. In financial terms, the term operating ratio refers to a company's operating expenses as a percentage of its revenue. Thus, the smaller the ratio, the greater is the organization's ability to generate profit. And an operating ratio which is increasing or going up indicates an inefficient operating environment. Thus, a decreasing operating ratio always indicates an efficient operating environment. So it is in this respect of operating ratio for the Indian Railways, the Comptroller and Auditor General has recently said that the operating ratio of Indian Railways has been deteriorating. As per the report of CAG, taking into account the expenses as well as pension payments, the operating ratio for Indian Railways comes down to 99.54%. This operating ratio of 99.54% simply means that the Indian Railway is spending 99.54 paise to earn 1 rupee. Thus, this shows a very poor operating ratio for the Indian Railways. Now, the CAG has also suggested certain measures to improve finances for railways. One of the measures suggested by CAG is to revisit the passenger and other tariffs to reduce losses in core activities. The CAG has further said that passenger fare and freight charges should be based on the cost involved so as to bring price flexibility. Renewal and replacement of over-aged assets in the railway system to ensure safe running of Indian Railways. To strengthen internal control mechanism to reduce misclassification of expenditure. Regulate all unsanctioned expenditure and promote transparency in railways accounting policies. So these are the measures suggested by CAG to improve finances for railways. Railways is an important topic with respect to infrastructure and becomes part of your syllabus. So a question can be asked with respect to measures to improve finances of railways. So you can include all these points as your answer. And also you should be knowing about the concept of operating ratio. I hope with this news you are able to understand how the operating ratio affects an organization. Just to revise it quickly, smaller the operating ratio, greater is organization's ability to generate profit, and greater the operating ratio, then it indicates an inefficient operating environment. And similarly, with respect to Indian Railways, you can see that to earn mere 1 rupee, Indian Railway is spending 99.54 paise. So all these measures to improve finances also effectively means to reduce this cost. Because only if this cost is reduced, then the spending capacity of Indian Railways will increase. Thus, this topic with respect to improving the conditions of Indian Railways becomes very important with respect to your syllabus. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now the next news also appears on page number 8. Here the news reads, French connections. The Macron visit underlined the growing strategic convergence that draws India and France together. Here in this news, the article presents an overview of India-France relations and points of convergence. So in this respect, let us understand these points of convergence. The first point of convergence is shared worldview, both between India and France. Here in this shared worldview, both countries support multipolarity in world politics. Next point of convergence is defense cooperation. France is a major defense exporter to Indian Air Force with examples such as Mirage 2000. And in this respect, France is also emerging as defense exporter to Indian Navy with Scorpene submarines. Both countries engage in naval exercises named Varuna since 1983. Next cooperation of India and France appears in the space sector. Here in this, France helped India to set up Sri Harikota launch site and also helped in the development of liquid engine. Both countries are to engage in space missions and also in high resolution Earth imaging satellites. In nuclear sector, France has built nuclear power reactors in India such as EPR reactors. EPR reactors are third generation pressurized water reactor, and recently France and India have signed an agreement for mutual recognition of degrees. Both countries have signed it as a joint vision statement for Indian Ocean region. And on the level of strategic partnership, in 1998, both countries developed strategic partnership between the two. And the current visit by the French president and signing of the agreement on Indian Ocean region as well as success of Indian Solar Alliance has further augmented this strategic partnership between India and France. Thus, this topic becomes important from international relations perspective of your UPSC examination. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.